The year is 2021. We barely know what going outside means due to a so-called pandemic. Sometimes I catch myself thinking if said pandemic is real. But is it? When you're a detective like me for more than a sentence, you start developing this gut feeling for these sorts of things. Can it really be a coincidence that throughout this so-called pandemic, the Nintendo Eshop has put more garbage asset flip shovelware than actual video games? Sometimes it even makes Steam look like a curated store. It's just, there's too many questions waiting to be answered here. Why is nobody talking about how bad of a company Nintendo is? Do they have something to hide? Why am I wearing a hoodie and a raincoat? Does Portugal even sell fedoras? Why am I having a monologue with myself in my head?
You do realize I can hear you, right?
I guess some questions are better left unanswered.
Wait, no. How can you hear me? The fuck?
Ah yes, the Nintendo Switch, one of people's favorite console, including me. Since 2017 when the Switch released, I've been wanting to purchase one for myself. And in 2019, I finally wiped one off the oven.
Smells like nothing.
And that's what it was on launch, releasing with a whopping 5 games, in which one of them was just Cash In, Just Dance, and then goddamn one to Switch. So really it only released with 3.5 games. Actually, I wonder how many games they have now. We might have a problem here. There's always gonna be an argument on what's the very best game ever made. And that's because there's so many video games out there that it's practically impossible for the entire world to agree on one given game. Some will say Breath of the Wild, others will say Mario Kart, some will even bring Prince of Persia Warrior Within, and they're all valid. Now, would anyone really bring Happy Animals Bowling into this conversation? Of course, not all games need to be the very best experience of your life, or even close to that. Some games just opt to focus on offering you a good time for a couple of hours, and you move on to the next game without thinking about it that much, and that's fine. But the games we're gonna be talking about today, they barely count as video games. What the hell is this? Nintendo, I know I'll check my weird lump faster than you check if a game is good or not, but this? It's not even a game! Of course, a specific piece of hardware can have multiple functions besides game. You could be the one Chad watching Netflix on a Wii U, or a 16-year-old kid somehow stumbling to Amazon on an Xbox 360 accidentally making a purchase of 15 different monster cans that later forced him into start a monster collection and a life of constant heart attacks.
Just as an example, of course.
Now, let's just update this game to have all the other games I'll be taking a look at today to justify the 2 years I spent on this app. First up, the Dead End. Nope, hold on. Let's jump to another level. The Last Dead Ends, the video game definition of the words dry and vanilla. The developers of the game describe it as a game with elements of an adventure, shooter, and horror. But the only horror you see is how bland everything looks. Oh, and pro tip to releasing a game? Make sure all 6 NPCs you acquired on the asset store have their eyes on the right place. There's nothing much to be talked about on this one. It's just a generic as hell pew pew game that tries too hard to sell you on an apocalypse, that does the spooky. But the only spooky part really only lies on the frame rate side. Overall it gets a hell out of 10 on the Switch port. Let's check my body temperature. Nope, I'm still fine. Let's move on to the next game. Super Loop Drive. Let me check my temperature, and I'm dead. All you do in this game is move around in circles, and if you choose the hard mode, you move around in circles with a straight line in the middle while collecting some coins to unlock some new cars. And that's it. Even the game I voice acted, work by 3 students as a homework, has more work put out than this. Got it. TNT? Well, this place is listed as condemned. And the cars you get all have the same speed too. There's literally nothing to this game, and the fact you have to pay €5 for it is really greedy, making this game earn my highest dishonor possible. Bobby Kotick out of 10. The Bullet Time of Revenge is a dynamic shooter in which one man it's an asset flip. Like, literally an asset collection bought on Unity. But with a different name. Oh my god. They're not even hiding it at this point. This one did generate some buzz from the media back a few years ago, so I'm definitely not the first one to talk about this game. And the interesting part is that even with YouTubers like Jim Sterling talking about how bland of a copy this is, the game still remains on the Nintendo Eshop store to this day. This shows the world that Nintendo doesn't really care if a game that's being published in their platform is even theirs to begin with. I mean, sure, they did buy the assets, but that's just a license to use said assets, not Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, change the name of the game and call it your game. And finally, we arrived to the main problem. The Bullet Time of Revenge is one example out of literal dozens of examples that the Nintendo Eshop currently owns. There's a lot of games that barely have any effort to them, are not games, hello notes, or they are literal copy and paste jobs. Going forward, especially with the release of a new Nintendo OLED system, they really need to fix this somehow. My advice would be to either add a report function, where we can report games that we might think don't deserve to be there, or they just literally overhaul their entire review system and actually take care of whether or not a game deserves to be in the eShop. Because at the end of the day, I understand that games can be great for one person and absolute bullcrap for another, but there are certain games that just don't deserve to be there, period. Now, before this video finishes, I would like to thank Mr. Star Shovelware that provided me with some footage for some of the games I talked about today, except notes. I actually bought notes, but everything else is actually from him. So a huge thank you, a huge shout out to this man. Please go subscribe to him, link's gonna be down in the description. And remember, please buy KJ's Mansion 3 coming on the Nintendo Switch eShop in a couple of weeks.